talk about rest in a world of unrest. We live, and I don't have to explain this, in a world that is so full of unrest. And all of us, I think, are a bit tired, wore out by the world in which we do live. And we can find ourselves just not able to enjoy much of anything because of all the unrest in the world. So when we think about rest, we might ask ourselves, how much rest and what kind of rest, if any, are we getting? And when we think about rest, we're thinking about here in the context today, rest is more than just a cessation of work. Because we all know that you can stop work and find that you're not getting much rest. You can think of rest in terms of sleep. As you get older, sometimes that may come and go, and you have problems. So it's more than that. So today I want to look at a scripture, at what Jesus had to say about rest, the kind of real rest that is promised to us by Jesus to his followers. And the scripture we want to look at and we want to examine is in Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 through 30. Now, we've talked about this and we've mentioned this many times before. But hopefully there will be some things in here that might give us a better understanding of the kind of rest that Jesus wants his disciples to have. We will also come back and rehearse a little bit more of that in the sense that in my Bible, in the NIV that I'm reading from today, it has a caption here, Rest for the Weary. I don't know if any of you are ever weary, but we tend to get a little bit that way. And it begins in verse 25. But we're going to move down to verse 28, and here's what Jesus says. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. In and of itself, it sounds simply enough, but when we begin to unpack this, we're going to see some things possibly that we have not seen before. Verse 28 shows us there are two needed areas of rest. Rest from labor. And in fact, we sang at the Santa Rosa congregation, all you saints who's from their labors rest, taken from Revelation. For all the saints who from their labors rest. So when we think about laboring and resting from that, we tend to think about the work that we might do on a day-to-day basis, but it's more than that. And then he says also from heavy burdens. So we ask ourselves this question, do we have any heavy burdens? Think, well, I'm not carrying anything extra heavy, 50 pounds, I can lift this burden to that. But that's not exactly what Jesus is talking about, just about carrying weights and the like. And then he goes on in the same verse, he starts out, come to me. And coming doesn't mean just revolve around the labor itself and the weights that I've mentioned. And the fact that just coming to him in and of itself does not resolve the issue that we're talking about. And then thirdly in this scripture, it talks about he giving to us rest. It's more than a commodity that is given to us, but he gives it. So what are the things that we labor with and what are our burdens? Think about this for a moment. What are our labors and what are our burdens and how might Jesus help us? As I say, we talk about working a job 8 hours a day, and what we are working on, though, most of the time. You have to ask yourself, what are you working on most of the time? Well, I would suggest that we're working on ourselves and we're working on others. Fortunately, some people have physical jobs in which they're able, I say fortunately, those that are doing it probably would not agree, but have physical jobs that just totally occupy their time. Someone was mentioning to me the other day about, well, Pastor, you probably, when you work in your garden, you're able to just work and do those things, and you kind of have free time. You have no idea how totally wrong that is. When I'm working in my garden, when I'm sitting in the back swing, or, just enjoying my yard and the like, you are always on my mind. There is always somebody or something that is on my mind. Sometimes I have to kind of get away. My wife and I talk about this. We've got to get away from time to time to get our minds off of what our normal routine. Now, not that you're a problem, but all of us have difficulties. All of us have children that we're concerned about, or grandchildren that we're concerned about. And it is a labor of love. We want good things for them. We want them to have a good life. We want them to be healthy. So we're working on ourselves, and in this regard, we're thinking, well, I need to do this, and I need to be better here, and that's just kind of our makeup, and we're kind of pruning ourselves a little bit, but it's a lot easier to prune others than it is ourselves. I think we realize that. So when we're working on ourselves, we're working at chores, or we're workaholics. And some people tend to be a bit obsessive, and they might even wake up in the middle of the night and start working on things and doing mental gyrations. So when we think about the burdens that we carry, because Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weak and weary, and I will give you rest." So what are the burdens that we carry? How about the burdens of a broken life? How about burdens of broken relationships? How about the burden of sin? How about the burdens of health and cares for others? How about the burden of finances? Do any of you have burdens of finances? How about the burden of the future? How about and I'm going to put more emphasis on this today, the burdens of belief. Because there are burdens in beliefs. And now let me use the extreme. There are some people who have these wild, outlandish ideas. And their belief system burdens them. It is a constant worry. People get so far out, they can be schizophrenic, they can have paranoia, they can be anxiety, they can be worried about everything. How many people on the face of the earth today, for example, are worried about the end of the world? Or the end of their finances? Or the end of their life? Or someone else? We're busy and we're burdened down with this. So let's take a look at what Jesus had to say about that, because I've entitled it "Rest in an Unrestful World," or in a world of unrest. In Matthew 24, Jesus talked about, and his disciples brought up the idea, and they brought up the idea of how certain things were. Because when you read Matthew chapter 24, it starts off with a certainty. So here we begin in Matthew 24, and this is just to talk about the unrest of Jesus' world with his disciples and also with us. Jesus left the temple, and walking away when the disciples came to him to call his attention to its buildings. Now, that seems innocent enough, but here's a reality I think that we can draw from this. There is nothing in Israel more certain than the temple and the buildings. These are the things that they relied on, that gave them peace, that gave them rest. We have the temple. It isn't the original temple, but we have the temple. We have these buildings. So they're drawing Jesus' attention to those buildings. And they say, "Do you see these things?" he asks. He says, "I tell you the truth. Not one stone here will be left on another. Every one will be thrown down." Now, do you think this caused any unrest? Think about it in this regard. Washington, D.C. will be destroyed. Every stone, every building, New York, every, high skyscraper. You think about the unrest that would cause in their lives and also in our lives as we think about it.
Feeling the blues today, or tired of life already? Do you have questions about life or need spiritual advice? The Worldwide Church of God is located in Fairfield, Santa Rosa, and Modesto, California. We welcome everyone to attend our worship services with us every week at the times listed on your screen.